Hello everyone, welcome back to Namma Laex Bangalore presents current issue of the day. In today's episode, we'll discuss about protectionism and nativism versus pluralism. We will see why this is in news and what is the issue and what are the demands, and then what is secularism, different aspects of secularism, what is the Indian ideal of secularism and what is the Western ideal of secularism, and then we'll discuss way forward. So, as the name suggests, it is a debate on protectionism or nativism versus the pluralism. And today's debate is taking place in relatively peaceful country of New Zealand and between two communities, that is the native Christian New Zealandians versus the Sikh New Zealandians. Okay, we'll discuss. This debate is entirely different. Normally, when we think of a debate or a protest against Sikh community, we indirectly go towards Canada. But the debate in Canada is altogether different. But the debate in New Zealand is altogether different. We'll discuss what is that difference between New Zealand and Canada. So let us start our current issue of the day. So what happened was on 20th December, in the December 20th, a peaceful Nagar Kirtan processes, which is a festival of Sikhs, was taking place in the Auckland, South Auckland of New Zealand, which is a major city in New Zealand. When there was a Nagar Kirtana taking place, a position taking place of the Sikhs in the roads, what happened was there was an anti-protest protested or contested by the localites with a haka dance. What is the haka dance? Haka dance is a traditional dance of the Maori or the native New Zealandian peoples. What they started doing is, on one hand you have Sikh people peacefully practicing their Nagar Kirtana festivals. On the other hand, you have angry native people practicing their haka and with the slogans of "This is not India, get out of India." So you can see these are all the nativist ideals or the protectionist ideology which is spreading across the world, which was previously a very peaceful country like New Zealand is now turning prey into this particular protectionism. So this was organized by Nanaskar Sikh Gurudwara in South Auckland. This was disrupted by counter protesters affiliated with a particular group called as True Patriots of New Zealand, which is a Destiny Church offshoot. So if this is a Sikh Gurudwara, the protest was carried forward by a Destiny Church offshoot. This incident exemplifies the growing tension between nativist movements and multicultural pluralism in the contemporary, not just New Zealand, but democracies across the world, which is offering critical insights into understanding the modern societies and the socio-political dynamics. First, we'll discuss what the protest is about. What is the rhetoric in the New Zealand? So first we will understand the demand of nativism and the identity politics. Let us first understand the nativism. What is this nativism? This is not completely the protectionism. Nativism is altogether different. How is it different? Nativism is nothing but an ideological orientation which favors established inhabitants against whom? Against the immigrants, often rooted in the great replacement anxieties, the fear that the native populations are being replaced or systematically supplanted by the newcomers. Let me explain this with respect to New Zealand. So New Zealand, in the New Zealand, the basic or the original community in the New Zealand, if this is New Zealand and if this is Australia, this is divided by the Tasmanian Sea. Okay, divided by the Tasmanian Sea. So this New Zealand, which is a country in the southern Pacific region, was originally inhabited by local natives. So these local natives were originally Maori tribes. Maori tribes. Later, there was a settlement from the Europe, especially from the USA and the Europe. These people carried their religion to New Zealand, who, who followed Christianity. Some of the native people, that is the Maoris, also started practicing Christianity. So, in that aspect, the Maoris and these Christians became the natives. These became the original inhabitants of New Zealand. But over the colonial period, what happened was the Sikh community were transported from India to the New Zealand during the colonial period. During the colonial period, they brought along with them their religion, their culture, and their customs. Religion, culture, and customs. So this Nagar Kirtan practice is part of their custom. So these came in the later duration. So these are considered, or this community is considered as the newcomers by the early inhabitants, and their fear, or the fear of nativism arises that these newcomers are going to replace the old comers and create their own country, or their jobs, everything will be taken by these newcomers. This anxiety, this fear that their jobs, their land will be grabbed by the outsiders is leading to the nativism. This is almost similar to the protectionism. This is what is happening across the world, across the Europe, across the USA, and even within India. As we see, the reservation for the localates, this is also nothing but an offshoot of the nativism. Okay, so this nativism is now occurring in New Zealand because of the great replacement principle, or the great replacement hoax. Next, the protesters demanded preservation of Christian heritage, very important. They wanted the preservation of Christian heritage, rejected what they termed as imported cultures. According to them, this Sikhism or this Nagar Kirtan are the imported cultures, and these protesters chanted, "This is New Zealand and not India," exemplifying exclusionary nationalism. Who are they excluding here? They are excluding the Sikh because they are the newcomers here. That challenges the foundational principles of multicultural democracy. So this is being seen in Europe, this is being seen in Canada, this is being seen in USA, and this is also being seen in our very own India as well, and very own Karnataka as well, or very own Maharashtra as well. Speak the language or get out of Karnataka, get out of Maharashtra. And the recent debate in the Delhi, if you want to work in Delhi, you have to learn Hindi. The chief minister or the minister of Delhi was caught telling this to a African coach. She said that if you don't know Hindi, you can leave Delhi. So these are all nativism or the protectionist measures or protectionist tendencies that are being observed throughout the world. Next, so what are the four core demands of these native people? That is the deconstruction or deconstructing the agenda. First is they want a mandatory assimilation. What do you mean by this mandatory assimilation? They want the immigrants to abandon their public cultural markers, including the traditional dress and the religious symbols, to conform to a narrowly defined New Zealand identity. This New Zealand identity is based on the Christian values. So, according to them, anyone who is coming to New Zealand should adopt these Christian values. So, they are talking of assimilation rather than integration. In the integration, the immigrants or the outsiders will retain their cultures, but they will integrate with the outsiders as well. They will integrate with the newcomers as well. But in this assimilation, they want the outsiders or the newcomers to conform to the already established norms, already established cultures. Next, second is ban on the religious symbols. So one of the core demand is specific targeting of the Kripan or the Kirpan, mislabeling this article of Sikh faith as a weapon. Normally in the Sikh, they carry a small knife which is called as Kirpan. It was followed during the time of Guru Gobind Singh, who is a Sikh Guru, and to protect themselves from the Mughals, they used to carry a Kirpan. So that has been carried as a part of custom or carried as part of culture. But the tradition or the natives of New Zealand consider this to be a weapon. Despite its profound religious significance and the legal protection they enjoy not only in India but also in the New Zealand. Third is maintaining or building the Christian supremacy. They want to transformation from secular governance to a theocratic principles. That is making New Zealand a Christian country, making New Zealand a theocratic Christian country from the secular country, focusing on one God, one law, which is fundamentally altering New Zealand's constitutional framework. This is basically saying convert India into a Hindu country, convert India into a Hindu country instead of secular country. That is the demand being put forward by the New Zealand natives or the so-called natives here. Next is immigration freeze. They also want to halt or the immediate halt to immigration flows which are deemed as unassimilated, with a particular emphasis on restricting South Asian and Pacific Islander communities. See the irony here. The very Christian people who are residing in New Zealand themselves are outcomers, themselves are outsiders, themselves are newcomers, because the original identity of New Zealand was a Maori Hakka dominated tribal identity. Now they are not allowing anyone from outside of the region or the religion to reside there. So that is the death of irony, you can say. Next is the Hakka controversy. What happened was, when the natives were carrying out this protest, they started doing this famous Hakka dance. Famous Hakka dance, you might have seen the Black Caps or the New Zealand rugby team following this, or you might have seen parliamentary in the New Zealand parliament following this Hakka dance. So all these Hakka dance is a famous dance which is followed by the Maori clan. They started following this Hakka dance in order to protest a peaceful Sikh possession. So this was also considered disrespect to the identity of Hakka. That is cultural, the Hakka controversy, the cultural hijacking and the indigenous identity. What is the traditional meaning of Hakka dance? It is unity and the tribal solidarity, challenge and the warrior spirit. That is why this dance is performed before entering into any war, or this dance is performed before going to the hunting, or this dance is performed in the modern times before entering into the rugby pitch. Maori cultural identity and the pride. It is also a sacred ceremonial significance. But in this particular case, all these were forgotten and it was used for the petty things in order to protest against the outsiders or the so-called outsiders. Next, what is the ethical analysis of this Hakka dance or the controversy? The appropriation of Hakka to intimidate Sikh migrants represents what scholars term as cultural hijacking. Cultural hijacking, that is the weaponization of otherwise peaceful practice, weaponization of otherwise indigenous rituals against another minority community. So this drew criticism as well, such as from the Maori leaders, including Marama Davidson. Marama Davidson condemned this misuse, emphasizing that Hakka embodies inclusivity and not exclusion. So you can see how there is cultural hijacking of a Maori dance. Next, Sikh community's response. We'll discuss the history of Sikh community in this particular region as well before understanding. Sorry. Yeah, the culture history of the Sikh community in New Zealand. So in the 1890s, first Sikh settlers arrived in New Zealand, contributing to the agriculture and infrastructure development. In the 20th century, they started establishing their gurudwaras and integration into New Zealand's economic and social fabric through the community services. And in the present day, Sikh community exemplifies the principle of Chardikala. What is this Chardikala? Chardikala is eternal optimism. That is eternal optimism, and they use this Chardikala as a response to hostility with peaceful dignity and continued langar services. Next, the Sikh principle of Chardikala is maintaining unwavering optimism amidst adversity. So, for this threat from the opposition or the threat from the so-called natives, they did not respond violently. They were very peaceful in this aspect and they responded with Chardikala. Next, international relations and the diaspora diplomacy. So where does and how does India fit in this one? Though the community is Sikh, but they are not from India. They are actually the citizens of New Zealand. But why is India being involved here? India is being involved here because of the soft four dimensions. That is, India's diaspora represents a critical component of softer power strategy. Critical component of softer power strategy. Organizations like the SGPC, that is Shiromani Gurudwara Prabandhak Committee, and Akal Takht serve as the bridges between the homeland and the diaspora communities. One of the major strength of Indian soft power is the diaspora, and then it will also have diplomatic implications. That is, the safety and the dignity of the Indian origin people or population directly influence the bilateral relations. This was very evident when it came with respect to India and Canada relations. How the relations between India and Canada were strained significantly because of the diaspora engagement and the diaspora issues. India New Zealand trade agreements, security cooperation, educational exchanges depend partly on the protection of diaspora rights as well as cultural freedoms. So, how a domestic issue converts into a regional or the international issue here. Next, the idea of secularism. How is it different in India and how is it different to Western philosophy? In India, the secularism is based on Sarva Dharma Samabhava. Sarva Dharma Samabhava. What it means? It is a positive secularism. That is, state actively supports all the religions. Sarva Dharma Samabhava. Actively supports all the religions equally, ensuring equidistance with while promoting interfaith harmony. There have been constitutional provisions provided to protect the minority rights and the cultural expression. Few of the articles are Article 25 to 28, which discusses about freedom of religion, and 29 to 30, the cultural and educational right. That is, every sect or every section of the society has a right to protect their distinct culture, script, language, etc., etc. Next, and also state intervention in the religious matters for reform. As we can see, the state recent intervention with respect to triple talaq or with respect to entry into temples for the female. Next, what is the New Zealand model? So New Zealand model is basically on the Western principle, that is not on the Sarvadharma Samabhava. Instead, it is on the principle of Dharma Nirapeksha. Dharma Nirapeksha. Dharma Nirapeksha, which means neutrality paradigm. That is, Western secularism emphasizes on the state neutrality, meaning separation of the church or the religion and the state with a minimal interference. Meaning, however, the rising religious fundamentalism led by the figures like Brian Timaki with respect to this New Zealand is testing the secular boundaries in this case. So, no established state religion according to this Western model, and freedom of worship is guaranteed here, challenged, but it is being challenged by the majoritarian movements because one of the two of the core demands of the four demands was with respect to establishment of Christian state and also with respect to abolition of worshipping of different religions. Next, legal framework and the public order management in this aspect. One is from the New Zealand, every individual has a freedom of assembly and every individual has a freedom of religion, and police have included in de-escalating these issues. So no need to go deep into these things because it is New Zealand aspect, but freedom of assembly, freedom of religion are also the freedoms which are provided to Indians in India as well. Okay, next, the global context, the rise of far right populism, the rise of nativism, and the rise of protectionism, and the major contributing factors, that is the international parallels with respect to this Auckland incident, majorly can be seen in Europe, that is anti-immigrant rhetoric in France, Germany, and Italy targeting Muslims and the South Asian communities, and the United States. Great replacement theories influencing mainstream political discourse, and the digital echo chambers, that is social media algorithms amplifying polarizing content and the extremist narratives, which is being seen with respect to Bangladesh and India as well. Next, from the UPSC level, understanding how the digital platforms facilitate the communal pluralization in the multicultural societies based on the algorithm bias is essential for contemporary governance and the policies. And finally, how do you address these issues? And the way forward should be aimed at strengthening social cohesion. And how do you bring about this social cohesion? By the educational interventions, that is incorporating multicultural education and critical thinking curricula to promote or the counter prejudice and promote intercultural understanding from early schooling. And then community dialogue, that is facilitating structured inter-community conversations and shared cultural experiences to build empathy and reduce stereotyping. And finally, legal safeguards, that is strengthening anti-discrimination legislatures whilst protecting the freedom of expression and through balanced constitutional mechanism, which are already being done, but now the aim is to implement them properly and bring about behavioral changes. So pluralism is not a threat to national sovereignty, it is a foundation of resilient, innovative, and prosperous democracies, and India can be the best example for this particular statement. Okay, so this is about Auckland standoff or New Zealand standoff between Sikh and the native New Zealanders. So if you have doubts with respect to this particular topic, you can write in the comment box, and if you like the video, then please hit the like button, comment on it, and also share with your friends. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe to the channel and click on the bell icon so that you don't miss any notification. With this, I will end the video. Jai Hind, Jai Karnataka.